This video, I'm going to talk about the tank problem. There is a huge tank problem in ranked matches in this game, and I made a post about this suggesting that DPS players should help focus tanks, and you would think that I called everyone's mom a whore because the blowback I got from DPS players on, resisting the idea that you should attack tanks was absolutely staggering to me. So let me break this down a little bit more. So there's an order of operations on who are the primary targets in a match here in this game. And before any of you jump on me and get angry and triggered by this video, I want to make it clear that there are different strategies that work at different times. And so I'm not trying to say that tanks need to be the number one priority, number one target at all times, but there is a problem with tanks being ignored by most DPS players particularly, and a lot of matches are being lost because these tanks have free reign, whether they're diving or just on the front line holding space, and they're not being addressed. So what does this look like? What does the problem look like? Here's what it looks like, and I'll give you the strategist perspective first because I play a lot of strategists historically. You come out of the spawn and you've got a Venom waiting for you, or you've got a Thor waiting for you, or a Hulk, or one of these big tanks, or Captain America, and no one is doing anything about that tank, and they are just squashing you in the back line, diving on you. That's one way, and it's really annoying, right? And people need to peel and protect their strategist, but that's really a topic for a whole other video. But that's what it looks like from a strategist. Now, from a tank perspective, which I've been playing a lot of tank in Season 4 and Season 4.5, and when I'm a tank, I'm usually engaging the other tanks because those are the first combatants I see when I'm trying to create space. So let's say I'm playing Magneto, and there's another Magneto or a Doctor Strange, and I'm just wailing on them with Magneto, but I just can't get their health down far enough. And if it does get down really far, they're good at using the cooldowns. They back up a little bit and get healed by their healers, and then they're back in the fray again, and we just don't make any progress as a team. So from those two perspectives, where are the DPS players? What are they doing? Well, according to a lot of the heated comments I got and remarks I got, there is a consensus with a lot of people in this game that as a DPS player, you need to target strategists first. Now, I think that's fine. I mean, if you take out the strategists, it makes sense, right? If the strategists are gone, then there's no healers for the other team. But here's the problem with that. That doesn't always work. And I've been in matches where my team, my DPS players cannot pick the strategist. And even if they do pick the strategist, it's just not enough to slow down the momentum of that team because they survive long enough for those strategists to respawn and come right back out. And so what happens is that they just blow by the tank, leave the tank for all of the rest of us to deal with, and just go after the strategists. So it's like this tunnel vision that this is the only way to play Marvel Rivals is you need to take out strategists first. And if you don't do that, then you got to just keep trying that the whole match. Well, what if teams are really good and if that just doesn't work? People need to change their tactics. They need to change their strategy. But I'm getting so much pushback on this that people think I'm stupid or idiotic for suggesting that they attack a tank. And I've seen strategists, I've read strategists saying, well, tanks need to attack tanks. That's the tank's job. So clearly there is a lot of misinformation and there's just a lot of just varied opinions across the board on who should be fighting these battles versus tanks. Now, as a longtime Overwatch player, if the tank goes down, the whole team crumbles because Overwatch had one tank. It was a 5-person team, at least at the time, in Overwatch 2. And the same is true for Marvel Rivals. If the tank goes down, then there's no one there to take all that heat, and then the squishies go down really quickly. So I don't understand why there's so much resistance to shooting tanks. The next thing is that a lot of people feel like as DPS players, they should not attack tanks because if you attack a tank and they don't die, they get healed by their healers, which charges the healer ults. This is probably the most common objection I get to the tactics of attacking tanks and melting tanks first as well. If you attack the tank, they're just going to get healed and charge healer ults, and then healer ults are bad, right? They can change the tide of the war in the game. I don't think that's completely untrue, but I will say this. If a team melts a tank, and they don't have a chance to get healed as much by their healer, then wouldn't it make sense that the healer is not getting their ultimate charged? If you attack a tank and bring them halfway down or even 3/4 down and they get healed over and over again because you don't have enough DPS on that tank, then you are charging the healer ults. And even if the healers have an ultimate, who cares? I mean, you have to deal with healer ultimates. That's just part of the game. They're going to come one way or the other. And does it make sense? Doesn't it make sense to have an Iron Man or a Magneto or someone who has an ult that can counter a healer ult? There's counters in this game. If healer ults are such a big deal, then play a character that can counter that ult. It's that simple. So we have to be able to attack tanks. We have to be able to drive them back. And DPS players need to be flexible and say, hey, look, if you can't get a pick or if someone else is doing the diving, you need to help take down the tanks. You need to focus the tanks. I'll give you another example of this. Have you ever had a ranked match, where you've got a Spider-Man on your team and the Spider-Man's cooking and he's actually getting picks, but your team is still not winning? They're not achieving the objective. They're not moving the payload, the objective. They're not capturing or dominating the territory, but your Spider-Man's proud of himself because he keeps picking the healers. That's a prime example of why the DPS focus needs to be on tanks. And I would argue in a lot of games with a Spider-Man, it's really tough because a Spider-Man is one DPS player that is not on your front line anymore, so you're not getting any assistance on taking on tanks. And if that team has two really good tanks that understand their cooldowns and they play conservatively and they know when to go back and get healed, they know when to get out of situations, your Spider-Man can get all the healer picks they want. But if those tanks are surviving, there's just no way you're going to bully them and get that space back from them so that you can achieve the objective. There's two things that people need to remember about this game. It is team-based. You have to work as a team. And if the enemy tanks are proven to be too hard to take down, you all need to work together to take those tanks down. I mean, healer ults, who cares? Take the tanks down, and then those healers won't survive to even use their ult. And if they do, you just hang back for a second or you counter it. But there's not getting tanks. Then they're staggered. There's no tank there to create the space, to take all the fire, to use shields and whatever it is that they do to make the game harder. I think people need to be open-minded about changing their approach. I'm not saying don't attack strategists or healers. What I'm saying is that if that doesn't work, you need to change your strategy. You need to be focused on your backline. Maybe your backline's getting terrorized by Venom and Thor the whole time, while you're busy as the Thing trying to get picks on their strategists, and it's just not working. Or if a team goes triple strategist, then maybe you get a pick on one of them, but they still have two left. And if they have really good players that are compensating for DPS and tanks, then you're just not going to win the match. You're just going to keep going through this useless exercise and waste everyone's time, and then 15, 20 minutes have gone by and you didn't win the match because you just prolonged your defeat. I really think people need to be open-minded in this game. There needs to be this aspect of changing your strategy, recognizing what the other team is doing, recognizing what works and what doesn't work, and being willing to try something new. I think DPS players in general are still playing this game like it's Call of Duty. They want to go get picks and they want to boost their metrics, and it feels good to them to do that. But is it really helping the team? And I get it. When you attack a tank, it takes longer to kill them. And I think there's just people that are just impatient. They don't want to wait long enough and take the time to melt a tank down and defeat them. And if you only attack tanks in the game, your metrics suffer. Even though it may be helping the team move the objective, people will look at your score and say, wow, you didn't get as many kills as other people on the team. Maybe you should switch. Well, has it occurred to them that the kills that you have gotten are tanks and you're taking out the biggest, most prominent bullies in the game? I think people need to consider this. I've had matches where I fight the tank the whole time. Venom keeps diving in, I attack him, he understands his cooldowns really well, and he's able to pop his shield and escape. And then he comes back again and terrorizes my healers, and I go back and I peel, and we get rid of him, but he's just taking up time, right? He's just taking up attention. He's just keeping our team distracted. And boy, it would be great if I had a Punisher back there, or an Iron Fist or a Wolverine or someone who can help just punish Venom or any tank that's diving for that matter, and just make it immediately a 6 versus 5 fight, because you've punished that dive tank and you had a DPS to help me peel as a tank to get rid of that diving tank. People just don't understand this concept. They don't want to do this. They don't want to be patient. They don't want to hang out in the back line. They want to be diving in the other team. They want the danger and the excitement of being on the front lines or being behind the lines in the other team. In the meantime, our team's suffering. We can't win because we have a tank that we're fighting over and over again that we just can't seem to finish the job. And so we are recharging the healer's ults. We are keeping that tank in play. And then my metrics suffer even though I'm doing my job as a tank to peel and go back and help our supports. I'm just attacking the other tank. And so I do damage during the whole match, but my metrics don't look good. And people start giving me a hard time. Well, you're not getting enough kills. Well, because I'm fighting the other tank. And again, I've heard people say, well, tanks need to fight tanks. And so you just can't win in this game with people. Like, you're either doing it wrong or you're doing it right. It depends who you ask. I would like to see the community change their approach a little bit in this game. Be more open-minded. I'd like to play with more players that understand that this game is there's so many ways to win and there's so many ways to lose. And you need to take a look at how tanks play a role in this game and stop ignoring them. Take the time and the patience to melt them down. There's nothing better for me as a tank than when I have DPS players that understand this. When DPS players understand that they have to shoot the tank and melt them down, my job is easy as a tank. It is so easy. I just go in, I take up space, I protect my team, and I get picks. I get tons of picks because the tanks don't last very long on the other team. Once those tanks go down, then the squishies behind them go down almost immediately. It helps my numbers, it helps my metrics, it helps my team meet the objective. I just think it's a really big deal to take on tanks. That's what I'm trying to say here. What do you think about this? Do you agree? Or are you a DPS player and you think, well, the only way to play this game is one way? I've had teams that we counter their dives, for example. That's all they know how to do is dive tanks, whatever, whatnot, right? We start countering them, killing them. And you know what happens? Nothing. They just keep trying the same thing over and over because a lot of people in this game they're one-trick pony with the character, and worse yet, they're one-trick strategy. They think there's only one way to win this game, and that is diving or trying to get your supports. And when that fails, they're just going to keep trying to do the same thing over and over again. And that's when our team will win. And the key is I have to have a team that's willing to adapt, right? And to handle these divers and be able to counter whatever strategy the other team is using, right? And that takes communication, it takes patience. And those are the type of players I like to surround myself, if I can, in ranked matches. Anyhow, what do you think about this? Are you on the team that is, I'm going to do, one thing the whole time, and I'm just going to go off the strategist, and you're crazy to suggest that any other tactic in this game makes any sense? God forbid you're on my team as a DPS player, and there are a lot of you on my team that end up on my team where you're just ignoring the tanks, and it's just me fighting the tanks as a tank. It's just not enough, and it's so annoying because you just want to go get picks. Now, there are times to get picks. If there's a Moon Knight that's just absolutely terrorizing your team and getting a bunch of kills, absolutely have someone play Psylocke and start countering that Moon Knight. I'm not saying don't do that, okay? I want to make this really clear that there's a lot of nuance to this discussion. I'm not saying just everyone shoot tanks and that's it, but there has to be an awareness of what's going on in the battle and why we're winning or why we're losing the battles. That's all I'm trying to say. Where do you sit on this? What do you think? I would love to read your comments. I'd love to debate you on the comments if I can, or just, know that you're engaged with what I'm saying. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd love to get your subscription. I like to game with people in my community. I have a Discord link that I'll post in the notes as well. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.